Good morning, everyone. If you can have paper and pencil or a pen to take notes, there's some great information that we're going to be covering today that you'll be definitely using when you start working with clients. So please be prepared to take notes. And I know it's not a required text, but if you happen to have Eat, Taste, Heal, you can have that nearby because we'll be referring to that. But I'll read and share the passages, so no need to worry about that if you haven't gotten it, not at all. All right, it's 8 o'clock. We'll start with our pranams. Dear Lord Dhanvantri, I give you namaskar and pranams. Your lotus feet is worshipped by all. You can heal the world from miseries, diseases, ailments, old age, and fear of diseases. Give us your blessings and your medicines so we can help the sick and the unwell. All right, very good. How is everyone doing this morning in the chat box? You can just check in real quickly. We may have a small group today. Energetic, awesome, great, good today, perfect. And how are your studies going? Is everything going well with your studies? Okay, perfect. All right, well, we're gonna go ahead and jump right in. It's 8:01. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. So today we are actually going to be reviewing nuts and Ayurvedic beverages, some teas. We'll be talking about the benefits of hot water, and then of course the Mandagni, Vishmagni, Tikshnagni recommendations, and then just touching on how we can help balance the mind with nutrition. I know that you've already gotten some of that information in previous classes, but like I've mentioned before, we do a lot of layering of the information because the second time you hear something, you pick up on something that you might have missed the first time. And like I keep on saying, every time you come in and you take a class, it's like another piece of the puzzle coming together. Is that analogy a pretty good analogy for y'all? Is that kind of what you've seen? And now, because now you've been in the program for a couple of months. So are the puzzle pieces coming together every time you jump on another class in the chat box? And everybody, awesome, perfect. And everybody, I would like everybody to reply. Are the puzzle pieces coming together for y'all every time you join every time you jump on another class, like something that you picked up from a previous class and now it makes sense in this other class? Yes, too many. Oh, that's what my grandmother said. Okay, awesome. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to do a real quick vocabulary check just to make sure that, just for level setting, to make sure that we're all on the same page. Pachaka Pitta, the subdosha, and we find that in the duodenum, there's 7 dhatus. And if you haven't been exposed to this, you will definitely get exposed to this in future classes. So the 7 dhatus are, and you'll learn more, the rasa, rakta, mamsa, meta, and you'll learn the others if you haven't. The srotas are what we call the channels of the body, and that's like the GI tract, okay? And you've had a little bit of introduction into nutrition and other herbs, so then you already know that rasa is taste, the virya is the potency, whether it's cooling or heating, the paka is that post-digestive taste, and you're going to be learning more about this in future classes. Don't get overwhelmed. I just want to have the vocabulary check just to make sure when you see these in the slides coming up, they'll make sense to you, okay? Nupana, it's the beverage or the food that actually helps carry the herbs deeper into the tissues and actually can increase the efficacy of that herb, okay? And then of course, all of y'all should know what Vishma Agni and Tikshna Agni now mean. Okay, so nuts and seeds from an Ayurvedic perspective. Before we start, I would like to get a feel of it. I'd like everybody who's present in the class, and so we've got 7 people, I believe, 6 people, so I should expect 6 responses in the chat box. What type of nuts or seeds do you eat? And I'd like to know if you incorporate any nuts and seeds in your recipes, and if so, what recipes? So I need an answer from everyone in the group. If you are nuts and seeds a part of your diet, almonds, sunflower seeds, okay. And if you cook with them, I'm interested in knowing how you cook with them. Sometimes peanuts, okay. walnuts. That's good, Jamaria. We're going to be talking about that. Jayanti, I don't know what that is. That's interesting. You can want to maybe describe that just briefly in the chat box. Almond chutney. Oh my gosh. I've never had that, but I bet you it's amazing. Flaxseed and sesame. Creating sauces with it. Yes. Yeah. In cereals and salads. Perfect. Thanks, Marion. Did everyone answer? If you eating Jayanti, it's milk, sugar, and ground nuts. Oh my gosh, that sounds amazing. Desserts, you put them in your desserts. Victoria, almonds and walnuts, great. Okay. And so, the reason I ask y'all if you're incorporating nuts and seeds into your diet, and then how, right? And I asked you for recipes, is because when you're working with clients, this is the information that you're going to want to share with your clients. And I'm all about the why, right? And giving them tools to be successful. And so we're going to go over some different nuts and seeds that are, more appropriate for their dosha, but then also as an Ayurvedic counselor, you can help them think outside the box and how they can incorporate nuts and seeds into their diet. And you're going to learn why in a minute. Okay. So always all this information, like I keep on telling y'all, start looking at how am I going to incorporate this? How can I use this with my clients? All of y'all should have a spiral or some notebook where you're taking notes. And, it would be great. What I used to do is I used to put little stars by information that I knew I was going to share with clients. And it's very helpful to do that. All right, so true or false? Everybody's going to participate. So are almond seeds, are they seeds or nuts? What do you think? Are almond seeds true or false? Everybody answer. I'm waiting for other people. Are almond seeds or are they nuts? I guess I should have reworded that. It was not a true or false question. I apologize. All right. Kareem says it's false. Did everybody answer? No, waiting for other people to answer. Are almonds a seed? This is just for fun, y'all, so it's not serious. I throw these in just to keep everybody engaged and awake. All right. Did everybody answer? Are almonds seeds true or false? All right. It's true. Almonds are actually a seed, but they actually group them with nuts, right? All right. The brown layer of skin surrounding almonds contains antioxidants. True or false? Thank you, Jamaria. Anybody else? And again, don't be afraid to answer. All right. Did everybody answer? The brown layer of skin surrounding almonds are. Yes, it's true. The brown layer of skin surrounding the almonds actually contains the highest concentration of antioxidants. So it's actually best to eat. And this is a general statement. So we're going to go back and clarify this. Okay. So not for all doshas, but for the most part, for the doshas that this applies to, it's best to eat it with the skin to have the most benefits of the antioxidants. But again, that's not for all doshas. This is general Western perspective, as y'all know. Okay. Pistachios are a sort of heart healthy fats. True or false? Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else have a thought? Actually, it's false. You see how I tried to trick y'all? It's actually walnuts. They're a very good source of the heart healthy fats, especially specifically they contain more omega-3 fatty acids than any other nut. All right, our last one. Are cashews nuts? Or are they a seed? Or is cashew a nut or a seed? Actually, cashews are technically seeds, but they're not only high in protein, but they actually are high. They have other important vitamins and minerals, including copper. And we need copper. Copper supports immunity and really helps with the creation of red blood cells and connective tissues. And I want to know that I just want to share that walnuts are actually a great way to boost your protein intake. and they have a fatty texture, and as you can tell when you eat some, you can taste it, right? It's that fatty texture. And I found in the article that I was reading that you can actually add it to your ground meats or to other dishes if you want to increase your protein intake. So I share all this information with you as always, because it's information that you can go back to share with your patient, with your clients. And so if you've got a client who says, no, 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 I need to eat because I need my protein. And, you're going to have clients who you will not be able to shake from that, because that was a very strong belief growing up. So, walnuts are another really good source for protein that you can share with your clients. I hope that you found, Marion, that's nuts. I love it. All right. I hope that was fun and that y'all learned something that y'all didn't know before. All right. So let's move on to nuts and seeds. Okay. So actually, many of the benefits that come from nuts and seeds is actually coming from the oils. And like we talked a little about, nuts and seeds, they are another source of protein, and that they actually have a lot of good minerals, like we talked about the copper, but there's also magnesium and calcium and zinc that we can find in nuts and seeds. And so the rasa of nuts and seeds are sweet and salty, and they're warming. So if I had to ask, just from that information right now, they're sweet and salty and they're warming. What kind of dosha do you think would maybe be should not be eating so many nuts and seeds? Knowing what you know, pitta and kapha. Thank you, Marion. Yep, definitely, right? Because of that sweet, salty, and warming. Thank y'all. Great job, everybody. All right. And so some of the benefits that you're going to see with nuts and seeds, like we've talked about in the previous slide, that they actually will help build the dhatus, right? They're going to help support Meta Dhatu Maja, and you're going to be learning more about that. But actually, nuts and seeds are actually very sattvic in quality, okay? So now let's go on to some nuts and seeds and what for each of the doshas. So all nuts and seeds, if you're Vata, lucky you, all nuts and seeds except popcorn are good for Vata, especially in the form of nut butters and milks, because they're actually going to be easier for the digestive system, right? All right, so roasting, another idea is to roast nuts with a little bit of salt or simply cooking them in water is also really beneficial for Vatas. And then soaked and peeled almonds, again, are a great way to pacify Vata dosha. Okay, so why do you think in the chat box, would we not recommend popcorn for Vatas in the chat box? Why is that on the list of not to be recommended? Too dry, airy, perfect. What else? What light, exactly. What else? Vata dosha is comprised, yes, hard to digest, good call out, perfect. Vata dosha is comprised of what? Jamaria, you like popcorn? Yeah, too rough, exactly. What's Vata dosha comprised of? What two elements? Exactly. So everything, yes. So think about it, look at the way that you've described why y'all said that we would not recommend popcorn to Vatas. Y'all describe the gunas. So good job for y'all. Y'all describe the gunas, right? That we find in Vata dosha. And that's why we would not recommend them to Vata. So that's like something that you would want to put a star by. And that's something that you would want to share with your clients, because just like Jamaria said, she loves popcorn. So you're going to have clients who love to eat popcorn. That's like their little comfort food at the end of the day. And that's how they unwind watching Netflix or whatever else that they watch. So everything that y'all wrote in the chat box, this is what you're going to be incorporating into your discussions with your clients, okay? So I'm not going to go through the list. Y'all get the slides afterwards. I encourage y'all, make a note of these, keep these, because this is what you're going to be recommending when you do your client encounters for the recommendations on their diet. So now moving on to Pitta. The oily and, like we talked about the first slide, right? The oily and heating nature of the nuts and seeds make them less suitable for Pitta, right? So actually, looking at the list that are okay for pitta, like coconut, sunflower seeds, soaked and peeled almonds, again, another good choice for pittas. But then if you look at the slide that's not recommended for pittas, peanuts or cashews, pistachios, all salted nuts are pitta aggravating. Why would salted nuts be aggravating? Why do you think salted nuts would be aggravating? You know what? Let's do this. If you happen to have Eat, Taste, Heal, we're going to read some passages together. And if you don't, it's okay. I'm going to read it. But let's turn, if you happen to have the book, and again, it's not recommended, so it's no big deal. I want to read it. But we're going to talk a little bit. Yes, Marian, thank you. Yes, perfect. Perfect answers. Salt is heating, increases heat in the body. Perfect. So we know that I'm going to be reading on page 47 about salty taste. Salt is composed of the fire and water. It's hot, heavy, and moist by nature. Due to its drying quality in the mouth, it may seem counterintuitive to think of salty taste as moistening. The element of water in its composition, however, relates to its water retaining quality. Okay? Salty taste falls somewhere between sweet and sour taste with regard to its moist quality. While sweet taste stimulates the greatest water retention and weight gain in the body, salty taste will have similar effects when used in excess by any of the doshas. And on the next page, we're going to read the warming, and somebody already said that it's heating, right? The warming and grounding effects of salty taste are beneficial for balancing which dosha, y'all? In the chat box, which dosha is this going to be? Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. But increase both pitta and kapha. In pitta individuals, the heat associated with this taste can lead to, make a list of this if you can, hyperacidity, high blood pressure, skin rashes, grayness and loss of hair, wrinkles, and eye problems. I'm going to go through the list one more time. In pitta individuals, the heat associated with this taste can lead to hyperacidity, high blood pressure, skin rashes, grayness and loss of hair, wrinkles, and eye problems. So if y'all have a client, a female client who loves to eat salt, I grew up with the salt shaker on my table. And I don't know about y'all. How many of y'all grew up with salt and pepper on your table when y'all on your dinner table? Yep. And how many of y'all grew up adding salt to your food before even tasting it? And please don't make me feel bad. I don't want to be the only one. How many of y'all added salt and pepper to your food before even tasting it? Ooh. Everybody answer me, please, in the chat box. No, sometimes. Yeah, that was such a bad habit. After you came to US and restaurants, your mom didn't cook with, yep. So it was just very common. We always kept salt and pepper, and that's what my family, my grandparents, we all added salt and pepper to the food after it was cooked without even tasting it. So if you have female clients who are very worried about their skin, you can educate them and tell them that in the pitta quality, with that warming and especially with pittas, it can actually lead to wrinkles. When used in excess by kapha individuals, the dense water retaining qualities of salty taste can lead to obesity, swelling, high blood pressure, and edema. So another great point to be educating your clients on. When used in excess by kapha individuals, the dense water retaining qualities of salty taste can lead to obesity, swelling, high blood pressure, and edema. All right, I hope y'all found that helpful. So it's just really, really important that you learn how to use your resources. You learn a lot of information in the counselor program, but it goes by very, very quick. Before you know it, you'll be graduating, just like the class who graduated this week. And you would have just absorbed a lot of information, but your learning does not end, and it does not start, and it does not end every time you log on to a class. Ayurveda is something, it's just something that you will need to be learning and studying. So even on the days where you don't have class, the expectation for all this information to stick, y'all have to be doing study, y'all have to be doing homework, you have to be studying and reviewing every day. You've got to review a little bit more. And part of that is knowing how to use your resources. Doesn't mean that you need to have everything memorized. You're not going to have this list memorized, right? But know what your resources are and which are the credible resources, and learn how to use your resources. All right, so moving on to kapha. We've already talked a little bit about this, but the heavy oily quality of most nuts and seeds actually they're not suitable for kapha, right? Not so much, right? But as a protein source, they are preferable to meat and dairy for kapha. So pumpkin seeds and sunflower seeds, they're great choices for kapha, again, in moderation. But then, coconuts and almonds, sesame seeds, peanuts, pine nuts, and walnuts, they're all going to be in all the other nuts on this list, they're all going to be very kapha aggravating, okay? So did y'all see in any of these slides with Vata Pitta Kapha, are y'all eating the correct or the incorrect nuts and seeds in your diet? If you want to share. Are y'all mixed? Okay, awesome. Anybody else? Mostly correct. Good job, Marion. Anybody else? Incorrect. Sometimes not so right. Yeah. And almonds have become very, very popular. For the longest time, I kept almonds at my desk at work, and I would just munch on those throughout the day. So when people, that's one of the reasons why we ask our clients what they snack on, because they think nuts like almonds are very healthy, and they may not want to, they may oversee it because they think, oh, well, it's a healthy snack, right? And so again, this is going to be another learning point, an education point when you're working with clients. So moving on to Ayurvedic beverages. In your chat box, I want you to write one thing that you know about what types of beverages we're going to be recommending for our clients. Anything having to do that you've learned so far regarding the beverages and choices for your to pacify doshas. Anything that you've learned so far that you want to share in the chat box? Anything about, even if it's just something, the basic one that we all learned about. What are you encouraging your clients to drink? CCF, perfect. What are you encouraging your clients to drink in the morning, first thing when they wake up? Simple. Yes, thank you. Warm water, perfect. How many of y'all drink smoothies? In the chat box, and if so, what kind? How many of y'all, Jamari, you don't? Does anybody drink smoothies? And if so, what kind do you drink? Not me, Kareem. No, very rare. So actually, smoothies have really, really grown in popularity, right? There's smoothie places all over the place. You drive all over town and you've got everybody selling smoothies, right? And actually, because they're very easy, if you think about it, Jamaria, you make a very good point. This is, and I think that's why it's this huge market actually. So I was looking up some research about how popular smoothies are, but because they're so easy to carry around, and people really feel like they're doing something healthy for themselves, right? Because that's how they're getting their source of fruits and vegetables, is through these smoothies. But if you think about it, they all have a liquid base. I don't know if you've seen how they make them. Sometimes they use milk, sometimes they use yogurt, sometimes they even use ice cream or cottage cheese. And I see that they use crushed ice and non-dairy milk, then they put honey, and then they put sugar, then some of them put whey powder and chocolate and all these other supplements, right? Yeah, sugar syrups, exactly, right? So think about, and then sometimes they even add like oats, or they'll use almonds. So they put everything you can possibly put into these smoothies, they just dump it in there. So now what did you learn at the very beginning of the counselor program about incompatible foods? So think about all the incompatibilities. They're throwing, exactly, thank you, Kareem. No dairy with fruits. Yes, yep. Sour and milk don't go together. Perfect. Y'all are on it. Good job, everybody. So you see, this is going to be another thing that you're going to have to educate your clients. So, because they really do think that they're doing a good thing. And so we want to talk to them in a way that, praise them and recognize them for being very health conscious and being very aware of what they're putting into their body. And so you want to give them that recognition. And then you want to then present why in Ayurveda, we do things a little bit different. And this is the reason why we don't think that smoothies is the best way to get a lot of the fruits and vegetables into our diet. So actually, just a little fun fact here, that in the US, drinks made from raw fruit and vegetables started selling in the 1930s after the invention of what do you think? It actually came after the invention of the electric blender. And then actually the term smoothie was actually not coined until the mid 1980s. And again, we see there was a Nielsen study that showed that 88% of millennials are willing to pay for healthier options. And so again, this is something that you're going to see in your clients. I see it all the time. People drink smoothies. It's just a very common thing that people will share with you as part of their, either as a meal replacement or for a healthy snack. And then the other thing, all of y'all talk really about the incompatible food combinations. But then the other thing also is that if they're drinking a smoothie first thing in the morning, what are they doing by drinking a cold drink? In the chat box. If they start there, yes, great job, great job. They're putting out that digestive fiber, right? Awesome. Thank y'all so much for jumping in on the chat box. I appreciate it. All right, so from an Ayurvedic nutrition perspective, when we're talking about beverages, we know that what we drink can actually benefit the mind and body, right? It's just like the food. It's part of our therapeutic part of our protocols. We believe that food can heal the body, and including beverages, okay? And not including smoothies like we just talked about, right? Or processed juices and sodas. Another big market that's increased has been the juice market. And again, even becoming very creative with different juice blends. And again, people feel like they're doing a good thing by drinking all these different food juice combinations. And it's very expensive. If you go to the stores, like some of those juices with different combinations are pretty expensive, but people are doing it because they think that they're doing something healthy for themselves, right? And so from an Ayurvedic perspective, we want to, we'll talk more about that in a minute. So Ayurvedic perspective, beverages just aren't teas or vegetables. From an Ayurvedic perspective, we're looking at the soups and lassis, which you're going to learn more about, in herb syrups. So from the Ayurvedic perspective, beverages, like everything else, we're going to consider the dosha, right? We're going to consider the rasa, the virya, the vipaka, and even the temperature of the beverage, okay? Because we're actually looking at, how it's going to help us balance the doshas, right? When we start working with our clients, either by reducing or increasing a dhatu. Maybe the dhatu has been decreased, so we want to increase it. We want to balance the dhatus, and then how we can use the Ayurvedic beverages to help support clearing of the srotas, those channels of the body that we talked about. All right, so water. And I have met some of y'all already during the live workshops. And one thing that if you've noticed, we all come in with water, right? We all come with a jug of water. We come with I had brought some bottled water in to make sure that everybody had some water to drink. The whole global bottled water consumption has completely just boomed over the last 10, 20 years, right? But what we want to remember is that a lot of clients, when you ask about their water intake, they may be thinking of just plain water. But what other types of water will you want to maybe prompt a little bit? There's other types of water that a client, when you ask about the water, they might just be thinking of regular tap water, coconut water, tea. What else? What about the sparkling waters, y'all? Yes, Marion, seltzers, exactly. Yep. And so all this mineral water, yes, exactly. So huge market. So whenever you're talking to your clients about water, you're going to want to dig a little bit deeper, because in their mind, all you're asking is just like plain water, like regular water, right? They're not going to remember the sparkling water. They're not going to even think about the flavored water sometimes. They're not considering that part of their water intake. So from a dosha perspective, what dosha do you think might need just a little bit less water in their diet? Just a little bit less water. Yes, perfect, y'all. Good job. Yep, kapha dosha, right? So vata and pittas, we're definitely going to want to, support, encourage them to drink water because of that dehydration that they experience, right? But we know that kaphas, they tend to retain, right? And so we're really gonna want to pay attention in particular to your clients with an increased kapha dosha. You're really going to want to dig down to see how much water they really are drinking, okay? And then I want to ask a question in the chat box. If you had a client who drank a lot of coffee throughout the day, what advice would you give them? Just out of curiosity. Drink water at very least. Yeah, drink some water at least. Yep. And Marion, why are you going to tell them that? Drink more water. Yes, Jayanthi, very good. Move frequently. Yes, it's dehydrating, drying quality. Perfect. Yep. So again, yes. Yep, y'all are on it. Y'all are going to do so great once y'all start working with your clients. All right. So hot and warm water. So we know that that's part of our basic protocol for all of our, most of our clients. We want to have them start their day with some hot and warm water. It's really good to remove the drink another kind of warm beverage. Yep, Kareem, exactly. And that's when you're going to help them as a counselor. You're going to give them different options, and you're going to be learning about some of those in the next couple of slides. So that hot and warm water actually is really good for removing that water soluble ama. And if there's you might need an oil like ghee to remove the oil soluble ama, and you'll be learning more about that. But it does increase agni, right? So it's going to be really, really good for the vatas and kaphas. It's really good for increasing absorption and assimilation of foods and nutrients. And so if you have clients, some of y'all have already been doing a lot of classes on the workshops we've had on the weekend when we're looking at tongues. What about the tongue? Have y'all learned on the outside edges of the tongue, those little scalloped edges? Do y'all remember those? And what is that a sign of? When you see somebody with the scalloped edges, do you remember? A client with the little scallops on their tongue is a sign of malabsorption, that they're having problem, right? And so having them drink warm water in the morning is actually going to help them increase the absorption of and assimilation of those foods and nutrients. And actually warm water actually helps, actually reaches the dhatus faster to hydrate them. And it's going to increase rasa and that water mahabhuta. It acts like I mentioned at the beginning of class, water is a very basic anupana that you're going to use when you start working with herbs and offering clients your herbs to help bring the increased efficacy of that herb into the dhatus. And then as opposed, and this is a why here, this is something you're going to want to share with your clients, cold water actually increases vata and kapha, right? And that's what can actually lead to your imbalances. And, dhatus don't absorb cold water. Thinking about that, think about the when you get cold, how do you feel? Just think about your body. Think about your body. When you're cold, you shiver and you draw your elbows in and you start bringing your elbows and your arm, you wrap your arms around together, you're constricted, right? Cold is constricting, right? And so that's why the dhatus can absorb the cold water very easily. So cold water, if you've got, and this is another thing that you're going to see with your clients, it's very, very common, especially if you're working, Jamaria. And this is one of the things that you're going to want to recommend to your clients, especially the clients who live in southern states, where we grew up with iced tea every meal. Is just very common, or other cold drinks. So what would be some recommendations on how you can work with clients to help them, educate them regarding not drinking cold drinks? Any thoughts? What's some things you might want to share with your clients? And don't overthink it. Just maybe something that you've done already, making changes on your own while in the counselor program. Anybody have any thoughts? Order water without ice. Yeah, Marion. What else? Yes, preferably possibility of doing it just rarely after 2 meals. Okay. So you know what I tell clients when I talk to them about water and not having it iced, because everybody freaks out. I will tell you. Yes, then slowly decrease the coldness. That's exactly what I do, Jayanthi. That's exactly what I do. Explain slowing of digestion. Yes, Jamaria, exactly. That's exactly what I do. Those are the two things that I do. I always give I'm from South Texas, y'all. So I grew up, I know I keep on telling y'all, but I grew up eating barbecue. So for me, one of my go-to analogies is the barbecue pit. And if, what they're doing if the fire is burning bright, and then they put a bucket of cold ice water, what it's going to do to the fire. I really try to give a visual, right? And so I use the barbecue pit to explain Tikshana Agni and Manda Agni and Sama Agni. And so that's what I do. But then I also tell clients, look, if you're used to drinking cold iced tea with lunch and dinner every day, that's what you've done for the last 30, 40 years of your life. I get it. It's going to be hard to go cold turkey. Some people will go cold turkey. I had a client recently that I worked with, and she was just at a point in her life. She just was ready to make all kinds of changes. And she's done a really good job of sustaining them. But for the most part, diet and lifestyle changes will be hard for your clients. And so what I tell my clients is, like, if you're used to drinking a glass of iced tea and the glass is full of ice, can you decrease it to 1/3 the amount of ice? Instead of drinking, the whole cup, filling up your whole cup of ice, can you decrease it at least to 1/3? Minimize the ice. And then if I tell them, or can you, if the tea is already cold, can you just drink it without any additional ice? And then I tell them, and then, gradually what you would really want to do is you really want to get away from drinking cold drinks altogether. And then we do the whole education piece. But it's something that you're really going to have to work with your clients on. All right, so this is one example that you can share with your, this is recipe number 1. So if you want to make notes of this. So cumin, coriander, fennel, some of y'all already drinking this. It's great for clearing the blockages in the srotas and increasing Agni and helping Agni move back to the GI tract. It's also great for bringing balance to the dhatus and removing ama. And it's actually very, very easy. How many of y'all, yeah, Marion, in general, we don't, yeah, in general, we definitely want to encourage our clients to drink room temperature, just because of the state of the Agni. We always want to maintain. And think about it, even if a Pitta person has Tikshna Agni and you think that's okay for them to drink iced water, well, now you're putting them in the opposite direction. You're causing another problem, right? And Jayanthi, you're right. A lot of people don't like the taste of tap water. You're right. So how many of y'all make your own CCFT in the chat box? Yeah, it's very easy to make. And then Banyan, okay, Jamaria, yeah, you can just make equal parts of coriander, cumin, coriander, and fennel. It's really, really great. I make it and I drink it at work throughout the day. I just sip on it at work. Banyan Botanicals actually has, you don't need to buy all the spices all mixed in together because you can just do it on your own, but they do have it all mixed if you want to just make it easier for yourself. And then some options to add ginger, cinnamon, cardamom seed. Of course, those are going to increase pitta in excess, right? So that's one basic recipe. Honestly, this the CCFT is something that you will recommend very, very frequently to your clients, okay? Here's another recipe that y'all can, this is almost tridoshic. It's gonna be really good for the Vata mind, for balancing Agni again, strengthening and tonifying, good for stomach disorders, clearing the mind, the srotas, bringing balance to all your dhatus, removing ama. And this is a rejuvenative kashaya with coriander, fennel, cumin seeds, ginger, cinnamon, turmeric, black pepper, saffron, almond milk, or organic milk. And then you can add a little bit of tulsi and cardamom if you want at the end. Again, very, very, yes, these are just your and these are your common kitchen herbs, y'all. This is something that very common that your clients will be able to find at the grocery store. This is another recipe for you to consider. Again, coriander, fennel, cumin, plus a half a stick of cinnamon, ground ginger, and if you also want to add 1 or 2 cardamom pods. This kashaya actually nourishes all the dhatus and brings them into balance. It also supports and stabilizes Jatna Agni. So it's going to help alleviate digestive sluggishness. It's going to help remove ama and clear the srotas. And actually helps alleviate symptoms of Pachaka Pitta. Do y'all want to leave this a little bit longer so y'all can take a note of it? Did y'all catch the rest of them? Y'all want me to go back? No, Jamaria, they're not. I mean, there might be variations. I'm not going to say that, but these, I think these came from previous students. Would y'all want me to show y'all the slides again? One more time? Oh yeah, you can print the presentation. Yes, if that's what you're doing, Marianne. Perfect. And I mean, she's even in this recipe, she's even telling you how to, you know, while the water is building up to a boil, you use your mortar and pestle to grind your all your herbs. How many of y'all have a mortar and pestle at home? How many of you have a mortar and pestle at home? This is just yeah, and actually if you have like a coffee grinder blender that can grind these herbs into like a powder, then you could use that also. So if you don't have a mortar and pestle, I encourage you to go ahead and get one this week, because you'll be needing it. All right, so if you don't have a mortar and pestle, and the dry grinder that that grinds your herbs into like a powder, Jayanthi, is that what you're talking about? Okay, so that's one of your homework. Okay, perfect, then you'll be fine, you'll be fine. All right, so if you don't have mortar and pestle, then please have one for next week, okay? All right, so this is a really helpful slide. I'd like for you to make a note of some of these teas and just focus in on some of the common teas. These are some things that you're going to want to definitely recommend for your clients. For Vatas, at the time of, okay, Manjulati is going to give you more instructions. So for Vatas at time of season, of changes of the seasons or flu, licorice tea is yummy, or ginger, organic ginger tea, or cardamom. All these are warming, right? For pittas, the cardamom, the licorice, also, but if you'll notice here that there's an inclusion of the rose petals and coconut milk, right? Because we know that those are cooling. And for kaphas, also some warming teas. There's Raja's cup. It's a coffee substitute made of clearing nut licorice. I've never tried this. How many of you have tried this as a substitute for coffee? I personally have never tried this. And then, no, yeah. Tulsi tea is actually very common tea that a lot of people are drinking. I see it in our break room at work a lot. It's good for Vatas and Kaphas, and Tulsi with a rose blend is actually really good for Pitta as well. This is another great slide. I'd like for you to make a note of some of the most common teas that you can find either at restaurants or you can find at the grocery store. Make a list of the teas that you've already had, that you incorporate in, maybe that you drink on a regular basis or that you purchase on a regular basis, because this is the list that you're going to be recommending to your clients. So pull out the teas that you know that they can either find in restaurants or at the grocery store, that they're going to be easy, right? We want to make it easy for them. Tea is actually the second most widely consumed beverage worldwide, following water. And as we all know, drinking hot and cold teas has become really popular. There's a lot of, even the little tea, like coffee shops, but they have them for tea. Tea houses is very, very popular. And I think people recognized that sodas were unhealthy. And so that's what drove a lot of the market. People drove them to looking for healthy alternatives, which is teas. And you'll see at the grocery store, there's a lot of different now combinations of teas as well. Tea with all kinds of things. So definitely, yeah, Marion, you're gonna be going over that in another class, because we do need for them to be dry, right? And so then it's, what are the most common teas in this list that you've seen at restaurants? Real quick, in the chat box. What are some common teas that you see in restaurants, that they're serving in restaurants? And I'm sure they're all artificial, right? But anyway, green tea, yep, mint, chamomile, jasmine, peppermint. What else? Black tea, Earl Grey. What else? The berry teas are very popular. Hibiscus, thank you. I was waiting for one of y'all to catch that out. Hibiscus tea is very, very popular. Thanks, Cass, appreciate it. Yeah, and so your clients are going to be, very, they'll be very exposed to drinking teas, and they'll be very receptive to drinking teas. And you want to make sure that you help pick them, pick flavors that that they'll like, so that's easy to incorporate into their diet. All right, so we talked at the beginning of the class that when we're looking at from beverages from an Ayurvedic perspective, it's more than just a tea, right? And it's just more than water. We're looking at soups, we're looking at lassis, we're looking at broths, we're vegetable juices. All that is what we consider to be Ayurvedic beverages. Okay, so for Vata, we're going to be encouraging sweet and vegetable, potato, barley soup, those grounding brothy soups, lots of ghee, right? Not so much those thick, chunky, but small pieces of vegetables. Mung bean dal, very, very good. Again, thin soup, more like a beverage, right? Lassi, the really good source of probiotics. You can add some warming spices, right? And then serve it at room temperature. The pittas, definitely, we always know benefit from coconut water, rose water, and your dal soups as well. So this is a really great slide. Kaphas, we know we want to help stimulate the Agni. So we're going to be looking at warming Agni, increasing those scraping type of spices. And if nothing else, always remember to include the hot water. And for your kaphas, the hot water, not just before the food or just after, but even they can sip on it every few hours, right? And again, the broths in smaller amounts and dal soups as well. So for Manda Agni, so here are some kapha pacifying protocols. We've already been talking about this, and you've been learning in other classes. So lots of Agni increasing spices, and definitely like cayenne pepper, black pepper, ginger, turmeric, nutmeg, cinnamon. And then, of course, the teas, but always recommending the hot water. Even if they're incorporating the steamed vegetables, we want to make sure that they're adding those warming spices when they steam their vegetables. Tomato and apple chutney, oh my God, y'all are gonna make some, just so yummy. To this day, I still use Atul's recipe. I love tomato and apple chutney. That just was not a part of my diet growing up, y'all. So that's why I just think it's like the best thing. Pomegranate chutney is going to be great for not only for women's support issues, but also good for pittas. And then mung dal soup with lots of those kapha spices, right? And then avoiding rice or in very small amounts is okay. And then we definitely know that kapha should avoid or minimize a lot of the fats and oils from their diet. For Bhishma Agni, so we're going to want to help pacify their diet with sweet, sour, right, and natural salts. So hydrating vegetables and fruits, sweet vegetables with lots of fiber, cook with ghee, whole grains for breakfast and lunch. And of course, definitely we want our vatas to stay away from raw foods. All sweet fruits should be cooked. So again, this is another why when you're working with a vata who loves smoothies, right? And they like it cold. Bananas roasted in ghee with sugar, so yummy, 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 yummy. If you haven't had it already, strawberry chutney with warming spices like cinnamon, hing, sugar, nutmeg. Again, apple chutney, the ripe tomato chutney. I'm getting hungry. I haven't had breakfast yet, so this is making me hungry actually. And then the vata pacifying khichdi, the mono diet, which I love, and you'll learn how to make it. And I encourage y'all to try that and incorporate it into your diet. And then, hot water also, and some of those vata friendly teas that you already learned about in the previous slides. So for Tikshna Agni, we want to focus on those pitta pacifying protocols, right? Focusing on the room temperature water. We talked a lot about that. Coconut water is another great option for pittas, rose water, rose jam, pomegranate, the juice or the jam, buttermilk, whole juice of the watery vegetables like fresh zucchini, squash, carrot juice, good for pittas. And then khichdi with rice and mung dal, gruel with coriander seeds. And as opposed to kaphas, we want to encourage pittas to cook with ghee mostly, and sunflower oil is okay. And when we say ghee, of course, that they don't already have high cholesterol, right? So we just have to be very mindful of that as well. And we definitely want pittas to avoid citrus and acidic foods and high salt foods. All right, so what are balancing tastes for vata? Do y'all remember the chat box? What tastes, which rasas will balance? Sweet and salty. Which is the other one? One more. Sour, thank you. And what about pitta? What three tastes? Perfect. What's another one? You don't have to know all three. Y'all can just name one at a time. Yes, there's one more. One more. It begins with an A. Great job. Kapha. What's going to balance kapha? What type of tastes? Yep. So pungent, bitterness, stringent. Good job, everyone. Again, y'all, this is your foundational information. We're going to keep coming back to it. Keep coming back to it. So like vata, look for acronyms. I grew up, I'm old school, so I grew up with acronyms. Vata SSS, sweet, sour, salty. So just find a way to make this information top of your mind. It's a lot, I understand. All right, so the sweet, sour, salty tastes are gonna help vata feel what? How are they gonna feel? How's it gonna act on their mind? That the sweet, sour, sattvic, yeah, I guess, grounded, perfect. Yep, it's gonna help them feel grounded, right? And what about the taste of if a person, yes, calming. If a pitta person has too much of the sour, salty, and pungent, what do you think? How's that going to act on their mind? How do you think they're going to feel? If you've got a pitta eating a lot of sour food, a lot of salty, aggravating, agitated. Good job, everybody. And then what if you have your kapha person eating a lot of the sweet, sour, salty foods? having a lot of those, how are they going to feel? What's the action on sweet, sour, salty, sluggish? What else, y'all? Lazy, perfect. What else? Yes. Y'all are awesome. Y'all are on it. I'm gonna leave the slide up. I know some of y'all are printing some of the slide decks. But I'm gonna leave this slide up because you might need this information in just a few minutes. So take a picture, make some notes. So the sweet and the bitter astringent taste for pittas is going to help support them, with their patience and feeling satisfied with their communication. So maybe they're not coming across very angry or frustrated, right? And kapha, if they have more of that pungent and bitter astringent, it's going to help with their motivation and helping feel less stuck. And it's going to be very interesting once you start working with clients, people with a lot of kapha. It's not uncommon for them to tell you, I feel stuck. And they will tell you, that's exactly how they're going to feel. I feel stuck. I personally have one of my daughters right now is going through some stuff with a lot of kapha imbalance. And oh my God, for the last 2-3 weeks, all I hear is she feels stuck. She feels stuck. She feels stuck. So these are the terms. It's going to be very interesting once you start working with clients, how you're going to start seeing this all come together. All right, so y'all took notes, I hope, because we're going to need them right now. So here's a mock client encounter. Joe is a 28-year-old, very stressed computer engineer. He works long hours. He does hatha yoga 3 times a week and would like to gradually move towards a vegetarian diet, but doesn't even know how it could be maybe possible, because he really enjoys the taste of an occasional steak. He doesn't eat too much steak, but just every now and then he likes to have a good steak. He likes hamburgers and bacon and feels better when he has 1 protein shake a day. And we talked about that in the class, right? He does like drinking hot teas. And after your thorough assessment, you determine he has increased vata dosha, okay? Because this is just a little bit of information, but when you met with him, the more and more that you learned, he has vata imbalance, right? So what taste will you encourage for him to favor in his diet? And we just reviewed this. So what 3 tastes are you gonna educate him on? Oh, you're so good. Yes, awesome. Sweet, sour, salty, I love it. All right. What taste will you encourage for him to minimize in his diet? Awesome. 1 at a time is fine. Anything else? Thank you. Yes, perfect. And then what might be another source of protein for him to consider in his diet? Think about the beginning of the class. Yes, good job, everybody. All right. And then what is 1 tea you might recommend? What's 1 tea you might recommend? Perfect, CCF. Yep, all of those right from that list. And then I want to ask, what are you going to tell him about eating meat? How are you going to educate him about eating meat? Reduce. All right, y'all. I know we're down to our last 3 minutes of class, but if you happen to have Eat, Taste, Heal, I want us to quickly go back to pages 78 and 79. I want to share something with y'all, because you're going to have clients who are big meat eaters. And so we know that Ayurveda flavor, we recommend a vegetarian diet, right? And fresh, and organic and all that. All right. So while I'm reading off page 78, the middle page, while Ayurveda favors a vegetarian diet, it also offers specific guidelines for improving a meat-based diet. Choosing meat in accordance with the individual constitution is an important place to begin. Lighter meats are recommended for all the doshas, unless you're using meat for a specific medicinal purpose, like for building tissues. Beef and pork are least recommended for daily consumption due to their heavy ama-producing qualities. On page 79, the proper seasoning of meat is another valuable tool for improving meat-based diets. Pungent spices like cumin and fennel greatly improve the digestibility of meat. And then proper cooking methods are also beneficial. For example, pitta and kapha types benefit from broiling or roasting meat rather than pan frying it in oil. Makes common sense, right? Vata types, on the other hand, may benefit from this added oil. Food combining principles, which we talked about at the beginning of the class, are also beneficial to consider due to the incompatibility of certain foods. For example, consuming meats with dairy products or fruits creates greater strain on the digestive system. And this is where we talk about education and recommendations for our clients. If you eat meat daily, try cutting back your serving sizes while experimenting with a larger variety of legumes and vegetables. Also, try decreasing the frequency with which you can eat meat. If you currently eat it 2 or 3 times a week or a day, try including it in just one meal a day, preferably lunch, right? Because the Agni is stronger. And then you might also consider setting aside a meat-free day each week to give your digestive system a break. All right. So just wanted to share all that information because you will be having clients that are just meat eaters. So assignments real quickly. You're going to have an assignment to make a kashaya. You'll see this. And then there's another assignment here to prepare a soup for yourself. And all the instructions are here. And then the last thing I wanted, oh my goodness. So I know that, what happened? I had told y'all that I would be adding a slide with some questions for you to start incorporating in your NAMA review guide. So here are 4 questions. If you want to take a snapshot of it, it's 9 o'clock, so I'm going to end my class, but please add this. I know that I encourage y'all to get a separate notebook or a spiral where you can start creating a little review guide for yourselves. These are 4 questions. And so every class I'll try to add, 2, 3, or 4 questions for you to add to your review guide so y'all can work on during the week. I hope that y'all had a great, rest of your day. And thank y'all so much for your participation. Y'all are doing awesome. Thank y'all. Dr. Priyanka, would you like a 1-minute break, or are you ready to get started?
It depends on them. If they want a 1-minute break, then we can start in a minute. Do you guys want a 1-minute break? All right, then we'll start in a minute's time. Let me know when you guys are back and when you're ready. All right, guys, are you back? Can we start? Yeah. Namami Dhanvantaram Adidevam Surasurahi Vanditapada Padmam Loke Jararupayam Nityanasham Dataramisham Vividaushadinam. So we're going to start with Agni. How familiar are you with the term Agni? What do you know about Agni already? What do you know about Agni? Digestive fire, yes. Yes. Yes, it is a sign of health. Yes. Anything else that you know about Agni? What dosha do you think? That's those are your doshas, your vata, pitta, and kapha. The five subdoshas come from your vata, pitta, and kapha. So we're going to talk about what Agni is. We're going to talk about an important concept, which is digestion, right? We're going to talk about how Agni is related to digestion. Why do we care so much about the digestive fire? We're going to talk about the functions of Agni. Apart from digestion, there are so many other things that Agni does. And then we're going to talk about 13 different types of Agnis, the states of Agni, and so on. So I don't think we're going to cover armor and all that, but these are things that normally come under Agni, where you'll have, a comparison between Agni and the doshas, the different types of Agnis. And finally, we'll touch upon the topic of armor. So to begin with, Agni is something that ignites. It literally translates into fire. So, Jayanti, when you said five subdoshas, by any chance did you mean the Pancha Mahabhutas? Because Agni is one of the five Mahabhutas, right? The five elements. So, not the subdoshas, but the Pancha Mahabhutas, which are your space, air. Oh, okay, we're talking about that, right? So that we'll talk when we talk about digestion, right? So related to Agni, the dosha that is closely related to Agni and all that we'll talk about. But Agni is one of the five Mahabhutas, right? You have space, air, fire, water. So that it is one of the five Mahabhutas. And here we're talking about Agni, which is your Agni that's there within your body. What does this Agni do in your body? What are the functions of Agni? And some qualities of Agni. So Agni is hot, it's sharp, it's dry, light, mobile, and subtle. So Agni is actually a little bit of a combination of which doshas. Which dosha do you think is very closely related to Agni in terms of the qualities or gunas? Yes, pitta, right? It's hot, it's sharp, and so on. And also, it has some of those qualities of vata. It is mobile, it's light, and things like that. It's dry. And which dosha is completely opposite of Agni? I mean, it's right there. Kapha. Kapha is, can you tell me the gunas of Kapha that are opposite to that of Agni? Some qualities of Kapha. Yes, it's slow. Yes. Yes, it's sluggish. It's dull. Yes, very good. Oily. Yes. Cold, wet, heavy. Yes, perfect. So, yes, cloudy, pitula. Yes, it's slightly slimy and yeah. So these are gunas of kapha, and they are completely opposite of that of Agni. So if your Agni is really dull and really slow, what kind of gunas do you think you need to give to improve your Agni? As in, if your Agni is less, if it's really low, slow, dull, what gunas, what qualities would you give to increase your Agni? Yes. Other things? Mobile, yes. Other qualities? Yes. Yes. So you will basically give things that are similar to Agni, right? So you'll give gunas like, you'll give dravyas that are hot, that are sharp, that are dry. Why? Because they will help increase the Agni, because they are very similar to fire, similar to Agni. And if your Agni is too much, it's It's too strong. You need to bring it down. What would you do? What would you do if your Agni is really sharp, really strong? It's too hot, it's too sharp, it's like, it's too much. It's, what would you do? Yes, exactly. Right? Opposite qualities would give things that are cooling, slightly heavy, right? Slightly oily. Yes, exactly. So this word Agni, it literally means something that ignites. Ignites is a word that is derived from ignis, which basically becomes your Sanskrit word Agni, right? So that's the derivation of the term. So basically, what happens in your body is your food is digested with the help of this Agni, and there's digestion, there's absorption, there's assimilation and transformation that happens, and then finally it gives rise to your energy, right? So apart from digestion, what else does Agni help with? Agni is very important for awareness, it's important for governing all the structural and functional activities of the cells and tissues. It's important for digestion, it's important for nutrition of all the tissues. It is very important to neutralize and digest your armor. If your Agni is not strong, it can lead to armor, which is just basically food that's not digested. And Agni also plays an important role in your cellular intelligence and cellular selectivity and choice and so on. So basically, this Agni is the force of intelligence that is there within each cell in your body, right? Each cell, each tissue, every system within the body has this Agni. And ultimately, it is this discernment of Agni that determines which substance enters the cell and tissues and which substance should be removed as waste and things like that. So, in that sense, this Agni actually becomes, it's something like the gatekeeper of life, because it plays an important role in all these important choices that happen inside the body. It governs all the transformation that happens inside the body. It is that bridge between the body, the mind, and the consciousness. So if your Agni is not there, if there is no Agni, which is basically like your vital force, there is no jiva, there is no life. So it is very important for you to balance this Agni, because if your Agni is impaired, it will lead to diseases. It will lead to your ojas getting depleted. It will lead to your immune system being compromised. And then you're susceptible to various different kinds of diseases, right? So this is the importance of your Agni. So Agni is radiant energy. It manifests in the body in the form of your body temperature, your digestive enzymes, amino acids, metabolic activities. And the Agni that we try to balance is this Jhatar Agni, which is your gastric fire, the digestive fire, which is centered in the stomach. And this Agni is the main Agni in the body. This Agni is what helps you digest your food. This is the Agni that helps in the absorption, assimilation, breaking down of your food and metabolism and everything. So this is your Agni. This is what Agni does. Are you guys with me so far? Yeah? Okay. So now we're coming to a concept called Agni Deva, or the god of Agni. Deva means god, and Agni is your fire, is your digestive fire. So this Agni is basically your physical fire. But the energy in this physical fire is what we call Agni Deva, right? So this is just a depiction of how Agni Deva is, to help you understand what all this energy that is there in your physical fire, what all that energy can do. So two important things: creation and destruction, both happen with your Agni. If your Agni is great, there's creation, right? If your Agni is impaired, if it's totally spoiled, that leads to destruction. Your gunas, your doshas, your manasika as well as your sharirika doshas are taken care of, are kept in that state of balance only when your Agni is sama. So when you start doing your Ayurveda, we learn about a concept where we say, for you to be healthy, how does Ayurveda define health? For you to be healthy, you need to have sama dosha, sama dhatu, sama agni, mala. So your doshas have to be sama. Sama means balanced. Your dhatus have to be balanced, right? So your agni is the third thing that has to be balanced, and your malas have to be balanced. Malas are the waste byproducts that are excreted. That also has to be balanced. You should have the right amount of waste that's excreted from your body. If your urine output is less, that means there's a problem. If your stools are, either too much or too less, or if there's a difference in the color or the consistency, then you have a problem, right? So your agni actually plays an important role in ensuring that these doshas are kept under check. It helps ensure that these dhatus are kept under check. And if your digestion is not good, your stool production is going to be affected, right? This is just a depiction. Yeah, this is just your stools are going to be affected, your urine output can be affected, and so on. So agni plays an important role in ensuring that all your other all your other systems that support the functioning of your body is kept in check, is balanced, and is maintained. It also, as we studied right at the beginning, it's what connects the physical body, the mind, and the consciousness, right? So this energy that's there is what we call the Agni Deva. That's what is represented as the Agni Deva. And each dhatu in your shariram has an Agni component in it. Your system, basically, your body is made up of all the Pancha Mahabhutas, right? In different permutations and combination, you have your Pancha Mahabhutas from head to toe. Your Pancha Mahabhutas in what you eat and what you drink, in the herbs that you consume, and everything that we do. Outside us, within us, everything. So like that, within our body, each of these dhatus have an Agni component. For all the functions that we talked about, it's this Agni that does the main things. So for your body temperature, for your enzymes, for your metabolism, all that, you need this Agni component to function, right? Now we're coming to the concept of digestion. Now this is important. So uh, once you get this concept right, you're going to understand everything else that we're going to talk about in this presentation, right? So here we are comparing digestion that happens within the body. We're comparing it with how you cook food, right? So for you to cook food, for you to be able to make anything, right? Say we're going to make like a pot of vegetables. So for you to be able to make a pot of vegetables, what are the things that you need? You need to have a pot. You need to have water to cook your vegetables. You need to have your vegetables ready, and then you need to have fire to light up your thing to help with the cooking process, right? For your fire to light up, you need to have a fireplace. You need to have some kind of fuel. You need to have air that will help you light the fire, and then the process of cooking starts. Now it's pretty much the same thing that happens within your system. So you consume your food. You have all. Are you familiar with the different subdoshas? Are you all familiar with the different subdoshas of all the of Vata, Pitta, and Kapha? Yes or no? Yes, of Vata and Pitta. Okay. So if I tell you these subdoshas, if I tell you Kledaka Kapha, if I tell you Pachaka Pitta, will you be? You've not done the subdoshas of Kapha yet? Okay, so let me do this. Let me quickly. Okay, so here we're only going to talk about Kledaka Kapha. We're not going to really talk about the other kaphas. So you need to know that and bodhika kapha. Okay, so what I'm going to do is let me just quickly revise the 5 subdoshas so that when we're talking about it, you don't have any confusion. So your vata, you have prana, udhana, vyana, samana, and apana, right? These are the subdoshas of vata: prana, udana, vyana, samana, apana, right? So Pitta, you have Pachaka Pitta, which is like going to be the most important Pitta here that we're going to talk about. You have Ranjaka Pitta, you have Sadhaka Pitta, you have Alochaka Pitta, and you have Brajaka Pitta, right? And for Kapha, you have 5 subdoshas, but here I'm going to talk to you about mainly about this Kledaka Kapha, because that's the water content that's, basically going to help. It's just going to help with your food getting moistened, right? That little lubrication that comes, that is what we're going to talk about. And then there's one kind of kapha that's present in your mouth, which helps in the perception of taste, called bodhaka kapha. So just be aware of these two names. And then as you do your other kaphas, you'll get familiar with it. So we're only going to talk about bodhaka and kledaka, right? And I'm not going to explain too much about these subdoshas, but this is just for you to understand. So if I put the concept out there, it'll be a lot more easier for you to comprehend this. That's all, right? So can we start? So what happens with digestion? First, you consume your food. So the food goes into your mouth. You taste the food with the help of this bodhaka kapha, right? It helps you perceive the taste of your food. And then you swallow the food with the help of your pranavata. You chew your food with the help of your udanavata. You swallow the food. Your pranavata helps in swallowing the food. Now the food comes down. Now we're going to get into this process of digestion. So now what happens? The food is in your amashaya, which is your stomach, which is basically the pot. You have your kledaka kapha, which will help moisten all the hard food particles that you've ingested. It is also like the mucosa lining that's there in your stomach, right? So what does this lining basically do? What does this moistening effect basically do? It helps ensure that your stomach is protected from all the fire and the heat and the digestive enzymes and everything, right? So that protective layer is your kledaka kapha. Now imagine if there were peas in this pot and there was no water, and I'm just burning. I've started cooking it, but there's no water. There's nothing. What will happen? Your peas will give out a little bit of water, yes, but after that, what will happen? Yes, exactly. So how are we protecting that? And then if it burns your pot, which is going to get spoiled, right? So how do we protect that? We're pouring water in to help ensure that doesn't happen. So that's what this Kledaka kapha does, right? Now, your Kledaka kapha helps with the moistening of all your hard food and with the lubrication and the mucosa lining and all that. Then you have your Pachaka Pitta, which works along with this Agni. So Pachaka Pitta is your your all the digestive enzymes and your it's basically that thing which helps your digestive fire digest the food. It is what helps you digest the food and separate the food into the good portion and the nutritious portion and the portion that's not required. So this Agni and Pachaka Pitta, they work together. So your Pachaka Pitta can be understood as the digestive enzymes that are there in your system, as well as the digestive fire. So this and your Jhataragni, they work together, and then they start cooking your food. And then you also have your Ranjaka Pitta there, which will help convert your food, all the good and the rasa, the rakta, all that conversion happens. Now you have your fire. For your fire to burn, you need to have some amount of air that comes in, right? So you need to have that air to light your fire, and your fire burns. Now, slowly what happens? Your enzymes are released, your digestive fire is going strong. It cooks your food evenly, and you add everything else that you need to your food is cooked evenly, and then the amount of kledaka kapha will slowly reduce, right? The water reduces. Now your food is prepared, it's done, and that is your process of digestion, right? Now then slowly you turn off your agni, and then the next process happens where there's absorption and further processes happen in the system, right? So this is what agni does in your body. Your agni takes all the food that you've eaten. It helps break down the food with the help of all the other sub-doshas, with the help of your Pachaka Pitta, with the help of your, with the help of your Kledaka Kapha, with the help of the Ranjaka Pitta. And then there's Apana Vata also there. There's Samana Vata in the in your next to your Agni, and the Samana Vata is what helps burn the Agni. It helps ensure that there's a constant Agni that is required. And once all this is done, finally, the final stage, you have Apana Vata, where it basically helps in the downward movement. We don't have to get in there. This much you need to know. Does this make sense? Are you with me so far? Yeah. So basically, you have your pot on, you have your vegetables that are cooking in your pot, and you have your fire, and you have these doshas. Now, why I even spoke to you about these doshas? Because there is a connection between your Agni and the doshas, and we're going to talk about that in a bit. Right. So this is the concept. You have your pot, you have your vegetables in it, you put all your ingredients, you light your fire, you need air to help light your fire, you need the right amount of Kledaka Kapha, you need the right amount of Samana Vata, you need the right amount of Pachaka Pitta, and your Agni is kick-started, your Agni starts digesting your food. This is the process of digestion, and this your food gets ready. Now keep this in mind. We'll come back to the doshas and we'll come back to that connection in just a bit. Okay. So apart from digestion, your Agni also has other functions. So the most important function is digestion or pakti, where there's digestion, absorption, assimilation, and your nutrition and energy and all that. Then it has visual perception called darshana. Matroshna is maintaining your body temperature. So if there's no Agni in your system, your body temperature will come down. You start becoming cold. And if there's too much of Agni, if the Agni is too strong, your body becomes, your extremities, your body, your skin, it becomes very, very hot. Prakriti Varna, your constitution and color complexion is determined by your Agni. Shauryam, confidence or courage. Prasada is mental clarity, wholeness. Raga is affection, interest or enthusiasm. Dhatu Poshana is your Dhatu nutrition, tissue nutrition. Ojas, production of your ojas, your immunity, the resistance that your body has. Harsha, yes, your Matroshna is out of. So, what generally happens there is for Pitta Prakriti, women who go through menopause, they have excessive heat that's generated, right? So there, what really happens? So here we're talking about the maintenance of your body temperature, in the sense like your regular balancing of the temperature that happens in your body. Yeah. So so this hot flashes is not something that's common in all perimenopausal or menopausal women. Some of them don't have it, but the ones who do, they have a pitta imbalance there. There's too much of pitta, and there is matroshna that happens. Is out of your body temperature that's out of balance, and then you start feeling extreme heat and all that. Yeah. Harsha is joy or happiness. Tejakara is production of tejas, which is like the essence of your pitta dosha. It helps in cell membrane maintenance and metabolic activity. Pranakara is production and utilization of prana. Buddhi is your logical thinking and reasoning. Medakara is intelligence and cellular communication flow. Dhairyam, patience, stability, confidence. Dirgham is your dirgayu, lifespan, long lifespan. Prabha is healthy, glow, and lustre. And finally, Bhala, which is your strength and vitality. So these are the functions of Agni. So in your Sharira, you have 13 types of Agni. So you have, the most important thing would be your Jhataragni. So apart from your Jhataragni, you also have Bhutagni and Dhatu Agni. So first step of digestion is that your food goes into your stomach, where you have your Jhataragni, and then your stomach digests, all the processes that we were talking about, that happens. Then the Bhutagnis would kick in. These Bhutagnis are basically present in your liver. So what these Bhutagnis do is that each bhuta, right? Each of these mahabhutas have a specific Agni. Like you have a space Agni, air Agni, fire Agni, water Agni, and earth Agni. And these specific bhuta Agnis would digest their specific components that are present in your food. Say, for instance, if you have watermelon, right? So your what bhutas do you think watermelon would have? What elements do you think watermelon? Yes, it'll have water, and then yes, it would have some earth element, right? So what does your Bhuta Agni do? The water Agni will go digest the water component in the food. The earth Agni would go digest the earth component in the food. If there is some fire component in that food, the fire Agni would digest it. If there is space component, space Agni would digest it, and air component, air Agni would digest it. So it does that self digestion of its specific components. That is what the Bhuta Agnis do. Then you have the next process where all your nutrition is absorbed, assimilated. It gets divided into Sara and Kitta. So Sara is the nutritious portion that's going to undergo further processing, and Kitta is that portion that is eliminated in the form of your stools, in the form of sweat, in the form of urine. It's removed from the body. Then you have your Dhatu Agnis that start doing its function. So after you've eaten your food, what do we eat food? What is all this nutrition for your energy and for you to get good immunity and resistance, right? So for that to happen, you need all your seven dhatus to be formed. So after your food is divided into the Sara and Kitta, then you have another entire process of dhatu formation, where the first dhatu Agni would digest the Sara, or the nutritious portion. It would form itself dhatu, as in if the first dhatu was your rasa dhatu. So the rasa dhatu Agni would digest the Sara portion, and it would form rasa dhatu along with other components. And then the Rakta dhatu would digest the the nutritious portion from that, and then the Mamsa dhatu, and then so on, so on, so on. Finally, your Shukra dhatu is formed. So each of these dhatus get formed in the process, and finally your Shukra dhatu is formed, and then the essence of all these seven dhatus is what finally becomes your ojas, is what finally becomes that immunity, that resistance that you have, right? So these are the 13 different types of dhatus. You have one Jhatara Agni, 13 different types of Agni. You have one Jhatara Agni. You have five Bhuta Agnis, which are each of those Mahabhutas. They have a specific Agni, and you have seven Dhatu Agnis. Are you familiar with the seven Dhatu names? Are you familiar with the seven Dhatu names? Yeah? All right. All of you? All right. So these are the 13 types of Agni. Now coming to your Agni and the doshas. So there is no Agni without Pitta, and there is no Pitta without Agni in the body. They both go hand in hand, right? So when you have, when you see symptoms of, as in when you see qualities of Agni that increases, you will notice that very similar qualities that Pitta has, that will also be on the rise, and vice versa. So Pitta is your gross matter. If you like look at this picture, you will get an idea. Your Agni is the energy, which is a subtle matter, and then you have a subtler energy, which is called Tejas, which is like the essence, which is like within that Agni. So these three, they kind of go together, they kind of work together. They help each other in their functioning in the body. So this is one part of it. The second thing is that these three doshas that you have in your body, they affect your Agni. How do they affect your Agni? We'll see. So you remember when we spoke about the gunas of Agni, how you noticed that there were certain gunas that are similar to Vata, certain gunas that are similar to Pitta? Do you remember that? Do you recollect that? Yeah, like there's dryness, there's lightness, there's mobility that's similar to vata, there's heat, there's that sharpness that's related to pitta, right? And we saw how kapha is entirely opposite. So let's do kapha first because that's the easiest. Kapha, Agni, entirely opposite. So what would happen? What would kapha do to your Agni? What would kapha do to your Agni? Yes, it would slow down your Agni. It would make it dull. It would decrease your Agni. Exactly. Right? Now let's come to Vata. So we saw similar qualities of Vata and Agni, and also just from the way it is, Vata is cold, Agni is hot. Right? So, what do you think Vata would do to Agni? Exactly. There would be a varying effect for Vata. Vata can increase your Agni, Vata can decrease your Agni as well. Right? So there's a varying effect. There's irregularity in the Agni when Vata. It can become erratic. So if there is too much of air that comes in, it can blow out your Agni. And if there's less air, there's, too little, your Agni is not strong. And sometimes when you're sometimes the your Agni starts burning too much, and this air doesn't really contribute to balancing it out, there can be too much of Agni. So this is what can happen. Now finally coming to Pitta. So in general, what do you think should happen when there's too much of Pitta, similar qualities? What should happen? Pitta and Agni. So we're talking about how Pitta and Agni aggravation. Yes. So in general, when there's too much of pitta, it has to increase your Agni. Now, here we say pitta can increase or decrease your Agni. How can pitta decrease your Agni? Any idea? Burning your food is actually when your Agni increases a lot, right? Now tell me, how can pitta decrease your Agni? Like if someone comes to you with low Agni, with very, with low Agni, the first thing that you would probably think about is how kapha is related to it, right? No, not in terms of acidity. Okay, I'll give you a clue. Yes, exactly. I was just going to tell you to think about. Yes, exactly. The water element in pitta can actually water down your Agni, right? Perfect. That's exactly what happens. So sometimes when depending on the gunas, that's the reason why we give so much importance to the gunas of these doshas. My vata can be high because one specific guna of vata might have increased in my system, like the dryness of vata, right? And maybe the others have not, like maybe the other qualities of vata hasn't aggravated. It's only this dryness that's aggravated. And irrespective of whether it's cold or hot, I still have the dryness related to vata. Similarly, your pitta, because of heat, when that heat element increases, then it can lead to your Agni increasing, right? But when the water element increases, when the Dravatvam of Pitta increases, it can water down your Agni. This is very important. So sometimes you might have a person who has a Pitta related issue, but their Agni might be low. So you need to check on this water and you need to correct that. Only then can you correct. Because if you give the other things to just increase the Pitta, you're further aggravating the condition. Does that make sense? Yeah. All right. So now you remember how I told you to remember the doshas, and I said we'll come to it in a bit, right? So here. So the first thing is your summer state of Agni, where your Agni is totally balanced. It's in that perfect condition that it has to be for you to have good immunity, for you to have good health, and so on. So when it is in that summer state, it's balanced. There's perfect Agni. When you eat your food, there's the right amount of Agni that comes in. All your doshas are balanced. Um, your Bodhaka kapha is working really well. Your Kledaka kapha is perfect. It's ensuring that the mucosa is maintained. Your Pachaka Pitta is perfect. The Jhataragni is perfect. Your Samana Vata is perfect. Perfect. Everything is fine. So here, what can you do? You can eat any kind of food. It shouldn't give you any problem. You're in a state of, your health is perfect. There's a balance. You can use all the 6 rasas in your diet to maintain this Sama Agni Avastha. Now, going back to our pot, I'm going to bring that example and then we're going to talk about this. So I have my pot on and I have my food that's put in, and I decide that I'm going to put my Agni, I'm going to turn down my fire. I'm going to, like, turn it down, down, down. I'm going to keep it at the slowest, and I'm going to set a timer, and I'm going to say in 1 hour, I'm taking the food irrespective of whatever condition it's in. But my fire is like at the least, it's at the bottommost thing. There's hardly any fire, right? Now, what's going to happen to my food? Yes, it's going to cook less. Yes. Yes, it's going to sit there. It might build armor because my food might not cook at all, right? So, in your body, what dosha can lead to your Agni being, what can possibly cause and your Agni suddenly becoming slow or dull? Say, for instance, I have like the perfect food that's, all perfectly cooked and I'm waiting to eat the food. Just before I go to eat my food, I decide that I'm going to drink cold water. I'm going to, like, drink a lot of cold water. What can possibly happen to my Agni? I'm making it really slow. I'm making it dull, right? So what dosha can possibly do that? It has to be something that has qualities that are opposite of Agni. So what dosha can make my Agni slow and dull? Kapha dosha, right? So do you understand how that happens? So say I have, yeah. So I have my Agni, but I've reduced my Agni. My Agni is really slow. So that can happen when it is related to Kapha, because Kapha is something that can actually, slow down my Agni. And now what happens to the food? The food is just sitting there. It's becoming a mess because it's not cooking properly. So there's hypometabolism that can happen, right? Your food is not cooking properly. So what happens within your system? Your food doesn't completely digest. Your food is just like sitting there. Your metabolism reduces. That's the reason why people who have Manda Agni have a tendency where they actually might not eat a lot of food, but what they eat also, the metabolism rate is really bad. So they start ending up gaining a lot of weight. There's edema, there's swelling, there's no appetite. They start, feeling that congestion that happens. And then you start craving for food with the opposite qualities. You start craving for dry food, for hot, spicy food, because somehow you want this congested feeling to kind of ease out, right? So generally what happens is there's a craving for food that has opposite rasas. Are you able to make, is this like coming together for you? So when you have someone who comes with Manda Agni, what can you do? You give them herbs that are pungent, that are bitter, like you give them something that's warming, like trikatu or cinnamon or whatever, and ginger and things like that. That will help your Agni get stronger and better. So you give qualities that are what to your Agni? What qualities would you give for Manda Agni? Your Agni is slow, your Agni is less. Yes, you give qualities that are similar to Agni to help increase your Agni, right? Now I'm going to talk to you about another scenario. So I have my food that's kept there. I've poured water, I've done everything. Now I've decided to put my fire at the highest, and I've gone out. I'm not stirring my food, I'm not doing anything, but I've just gone out. I've gone out, I'm not looking at anything that's happening. So my food has cooked. I don't turn off the fire, I've just let it on. Now the fire cooks my food, it cooks my food, and then it starts, what happens to my food? It starts burning my food. The food becomes dry, right? So now, so what dosha can possibly cause this? Where there's too much of fire, yes, it's usually related to pitta. Why? Because the qualities are similar and that heat is too much. That burning happens because there's too much of heat. There's too much of that, too much of agni. There's tikshna agni. And it'll lead to heartburn. It can lead to hot flashes. We were talking, someone asked me this question, right? About your matroshna. This is what actually happens in that case, right? And you start having hypermetabolism, so you eat food and your food like quickly will digest, and then you start feeling hungry again. Now what happens to your mucosa starts burning up, right? You start having heartburn. And what is the one condition that can possibly happen when you start having heartburn? And yes, because you're burning up everything, so obviously there's no absorption of nutrients that happens. Yes, right. And then what can happen? So you start seeing symptoms. You start seeing yes, exactly, you start seeing ulcers, you start seeing acidity. When you have acidity, you say, right, I feel a heartburn, there's something that's happening. That burning sensation and all that. Also, it can lead to increased anger, being critical about things. These are all very pitta related symptoms that you see. And you start craving for things that are slightly cooling. You start craving for things that are sweet, and all that. So here, what can you do when you have Tikshna Agni? You use mild sour herbs. You can use guduchi, shatavari, amchur, and you usually mix it with an anupana that's slightly cooling. Like you can use buttermilk, or use aloe vera juice, or you use rose water. You use things that are slightly cooling to help bring it under control. Also, when you have these menopausal hot flashes, and when you have symptoms that are very similar to this, you can use very similar herbs, because again your pitta is increased over there. Now, if you have a condition where your pitta has increased but you don't see Tikshna Agni, you see really Manda Agni, you need to understand that it's the water element. So you need to correct the water element, and that will automatically get corrected. But usually when your pitta is related to some issue with the Agni becomes Tikshna, right? Unless it is related to water and you have too much of water that's gone and watered down your Agni, right? Now, coming to my last scenario, I decide I'm going to cook outside. I take my for water. You need to do something like, you need to make sure that you don't drink too much of water before you eat your food. So you don't keep sipping on water before you eat your food, and you treat it with mild heating substances. Like you can use some trikatu, you can use some hingu ashtaka churnam and all that. But the trick there is to help ensure that your pitta doesn't get further vitiated. You give it in buttermilk, or you give it along with the rice, so that little bit of warming action happens, but that it doesn't aggravate too much of heat related to pitta. So you give it with that. You just, so since the water has watered down your food, you need to build that agni back. For that you need any of your deepana pachana herbs can be used. But if it is pitta, your pitta is very high, you give pitta pacifying anupana. You can also use grita. Grita is like one of the most effective anupanas in this case. So you can just mix the powders, the warming powders, with ghee, and you can administer it, right? Okay, now I've taken my pot out, I've kept it in a place, it's very windy. So what happens is, I have my food, I have everything kept ready, but then sometimes there's too much of air, too much of wind, and my fire becomes less. And then suddenly there's no wind, and it's right, and then my fire starts it starts, it becomes really sharp, it becomes very strong. Then again there's vata, there's air, there's fire becomes less, again fire becomes more. This just keeps happening. Now, what happens to my food? Yeah, my food can dry out. My food can get cooked in bits and pieces, right? They can, because there's sudden increase in fire, there'll be pieces that would burn. Then there's suddenly no fire. There would be portions of my food that will clump up together. So there's irregular cooking that happens, because you don't have that constant agni, right? So here what can happen, you can have symptoms like gas, you can have symptoms like constipation, you can have symptoms where you have severe pain, very vata related symptoms you'll start seeing. And you start craving for food that's hot, that's spicy, that's kind of fried, things like that. So what you can use here is use sweet and pungent herbs like hingu, trikatu, chitraka with the appropriate anupanas, and you help bring that agni under, you help to regularize the agni, right? And then you bring it under control. Yes, yes, exactly. So that's what can happen. So here, what happens is in some cases of IBS, you notice that the Agni is irregular. They would have these bouts of constipation, and suddenly they would have uh, diarrhea and then loose stools, and then again constipation, and then it would be accompanied with severe gas, bloating, and severe pain and things like that because the fire is erratic. So you need to strengthen the fire and you need to regularize it. That's very important. Otherwise, there's no point, right? So that becomes very important. So what are things that can impair your agni? Eating too much food or too little food in one shot, eating at the wrong times of the day. How many of you here eat food at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning? Anybody here who has those, those weird cravings where you want ice cream at 1 in the morning, or you want to, you just want to eat something because you're watching some show, you want to try and go eat food. That is the most common cause for agni impairments, right? And this is very common amongst people who work late at nights because they have late night calls, and they're sitting up late at night, so they have this tendency to eat food because you're up when you should be sleeping, right? Even during the day when you eat meals in between your two meals, like between your breakfast and your lunch, if you decide to have something, not a healthy snack, like you can have a little bit of buttermilk, that might not affect you. But if you decide to have something that's very unhealthy in between two meals, and then without waiting for that hunger, sometimes you don't eat because you're hungry, you eat because you're doing something and you just want to munch on food, right? So that snacking can lead to agni impairment. Or skipping meals, especially for those people who are working long hours and they forget to eat a meal because of work, or these crazy diets where you don't eat 2 3 meals, and you're fasting and you don't eat meals, and then you suddenly have a really heavy meal when your agni is not up to it. That can lead to impairment of agni. Bad combinations, viruddha ahara, like yogurt with fruit, your citrus fruits with milk, combining foods that shouldn't go together, that can lead to agni impairment. Stress when you're eating your food, for that matter, even when you keep talking when you eat your food, or if you're watching television and eating your food, or you just kind of you're not concentrating, you try to eat really fast because you're in the middle of work or whatever, so you eat too much of food, you're not concentrating, you don't really chew your food, you kind of swallow your food, all that can lead to your agni getting impaired. Having cold water or ice with your meals, before your meals, after your meals, everything would impair your agni. So ice, cold water with meals is a very, very bad idea. You're watering down your agni. And lack of exercise. There is no metabolism in the body. Lack of exercise adds to your kapha getting too high and your manda agni, your agni gets really low and slow and dull. So, to understand a person's Agni, to assess your Agni, you need to know what food they eat, you need to know what drinks, what beverages they have, you need to know what snacks they have, you need to know whether it's processed, you need to know whether how many times they drink coffee, tea, alcohol consumption, what is their intake of processed food. So if there's too much of frozen food, canned food, they eat out a lot, all that can lead to agni being impaired. Also the kind of food that they eat, so if there's too much of junk frozen food, or people who eat cold food, there are people who actually take food out of the refrigerator, don't warm don't heat up the food, and they eat it just like that. All that can lead to the agni becoming very dull and slow and low. Too much of dried food, frozen food, and all that can lead to your vata getting very high, and you having erratic agni. So like that, you need to see what kind of food they eat, how much of animal based protein do they have, is it processed, Is the food that they eat, is it raw, is it cooked? Do they eat food from out a lot? Even salads from out can might not sit well with everybody, right? So people who have manda agni, people who are very vata prakriti, raw salads, raw food is not great for them. So depending on the constitution, depending on the agni, you need to. So these are things that will help you understand what the agni is, and what kind of medicines you need to give them, right? So do they digest the food easily? Is the appetite strong? Also, when is the appetite strong? During the day, at night? Do they eat do they eat a very heavy meal for breakfast or for dinner? That's a very important question. How is your energy during the day? How often do you feel heavy after you've eaten food? Do you feel sleepy after you've eaten food? Do you have problems like gas, bloating, belching, heartburn, indigestion? You also need to ask questions about allergies, about any kind of discomfort. So there are people who have salad cucumbers and they immediately have a vata reflux. There are some people who have issues when they have peanuts. And I'm not talking about allergies, but I'm talking about very vata related symptoms, like they immediately have gas and bloating sensation and things like that. There are some people who react to lime like that. Immediately they have that acidity, that and heartburn, and there's that pitta symptoms that they see. So these are some questions that you need to ask. Also allergies. So there are certain foods that don't suit certain people. So allergies and things like that have to completely be omitted, because if you're allergic to something and you have it, that will that's not correct. So the next thing that you need to find out about is the bowel movements. Are they regular? How often do they pass? Do they eat and immediately, do they have to immediately use the toilet? When do they usually have the bowel movements? Is it in the morning, evening, afternoon, night? And how are the stools? Is it soft? Is it medium? Is it hard? Also, you can ask them questions about the odor, which will help you understand whether they are digesting their food. Sometimes people would tell you that there's a lot of oily, fatty content in the food. Um, Sometimes they would tell you that, in the stools. Sometimes they would tell you that it's variable consistency. Like sometimes they're constipated, then later on during the day, they again have that urge, and then there are loose stools. So you need to ask questions about the mala to understand. That'll give you an idea about the agni, also about the dosha that's vitiated. So if the bowel is slow, if it's sluggish, heavy, the appetite is dull, then you're looking at something. You're looking at a possible manda agni with a very kapha related issue. If there's constipation, dry hard stools, a lot of gas and flatulence, and also sometimes with pain, then you're looking at Vishamagni with a very vata kind of symptom, and the bowels would be one or less than that also a day. 2 to 4 prone to loose stools and acid reflux or acidity, and they have a very strong appetite, then you might be looking at a Tikshna Agni kind with a very pitta related issue. And armor. So armor is basically food that's not digested. How do you understand armor? You can look at the tongue and see whether there's a white coating even after brushing, irrespective of whether you've eaten food that has color, or it's just there throughout, and it doesn't go even after you've brushed and you've scraped your tongue. So that can be armor. So certain things that you can understand with armor is that a person always feels tired, would be sluggish even after they've had a good night's sleep. They wouldn't digest their food at all, and that food can sit. It would just sit there. There would be a very striking odor, a foul odor that's related to armor, and things like that. So how you examine it is basically look at the tongue. If it's a whitish coating, the armor is usually related to your kapha. If the coating is slightly yellowish, you might be looking at a pitta related armor, and if it is slightly brownish, then it could be a vata kind of armor. So we'll actually talk more about armor later. You're just starting. This is just an introduction to your agni, and to what kind of agni a person might have, and things like that. So Yeah, so I think these are for your homework. Monica will tell you. I'm not sure about what homework assignments you have, but do you guys have any doubts in what we've done today? So we spoke about Agni, we've spoken about digestion, we've covered the different kinds of Agni. You have 13 different types